Today I'm going to be showing you how easy it is to make a French toast. But this is French toast with a twist because we're going to make a coconut French toast. But first, let's start with the ingredients that we're going to need. To make the custard, you're going to need 3 large eggs. For the milk, you're going to need 6 ounces of canned coconut milk, 4 tablespoons of cream of coconut, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1/4 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 6 tablespoons of butter, and 6 slices of your preferred bread. Now, when making French toast, I think the most common bread to use is a brioche bread or even a cinnamon bread. But truth be told, that's not what I always have at hand at home. Most of the time, what I have is this just regular white sandwich bread. So this is the bread that most of the time is the one I use to make French toast. And trust me, there's no downside on using this type of bread. It's just is on the thin side. Most of the time, I have these two breads at the same time, the thin one and the thicker one, which is called the Texas toast. And they are basically exactly the same bread. What changes is just how thick they are. The flavor doesn't change because they taste practically the same. Now for this recipe, what I used was the thicker bread, the Texas toast. You can use whatever bread you like, just follow the recipe for the custard. Now for this recipe, since it's a coconut flavored French toast, I'm using coconut milk. But if you don't want a coconut flavored French toast, just use regular milk. Now to intensify the coconut flavor, I use cream of coconut, which is sweet. But like I said before, if you don't want the coconut flavor, you're just gonna use sugar. So now let's make the custard. Take a big bowl and add your eggs. And then we're gonna beat the eggs by themselves. We're not gonna add anything else. And this is because if you mix the eggs before adding everything else, it will be way easier to incorporate the sugar and the milk. Now you want to beat the eggs until you can no longer see the egg whites. Now you can always use a blender. I just don't like to use it because it makes a lot of bubbles. But of course it makes the job easier. The blender is especially useful when you need to add your cinnamon because you always have a hard time to add the cinnamon. Because the cinnamon is hydrophobic, meaning it doesn't get wet easily. So you need to mix and mix and mix to make sure it incorporates well and is not lumpy at all. I only use cinnamon, but you can really use whatever you like. You can even add pumpkin spice if you like. After the cinnamon, we need to add the cream of coconut. And you see here, I'm adding everything by steps to make sure I incorporate everything well. Then I add the vanilla extract. And then we need to add the salt. Then you're gonna mix all of this together. Now, if you use regular sugar, you want to whisk this until you no longer feel like the sugar is at the bottom of your bowl. Now, if you don't want to use sugar, you could leave it out, but your bread won't brown the same as if it had sugar. Then the last ingredient that we're going to add is gonna be the milk. And then we mix until all the milk is incorporated. And because we whisk the eggs by themselves first, now just incorporating the milk is going to be very easy. And now you're going to be ready to make French toast. But in my case, what I always like to do is I like to transfer the custard into a smaller bowl. The smaller bowl helps us to dip the bread better, not in the beginning, but at the end when you hardly have any mix left. Because the bigger the bowl, the more the custard will spread out and it will be harder for your bread to soak up all of that. So just use a smaller container or just mix everything in a smaller container. Then we're gonna need a large pan over medium-high heat, and once your pan is hot, just add the butter. Now if you want to use an electric griddle, just set your heat to 375. Now this recipe is not only good to cook it in a pan, but you can also bake this recipe. All you have to do is you're gonna make the custard, you're gonna soak the bread, you're gonna put it in an oven-safe dish, set your oven to 350 degrees, and then cook for 25 to 30 minutes or until they're nice and golden brown. Now while the butter is melting, we're gonna soak our bread in the custard. Now usually French toast tends to get soggy in the middle because of the heat, but if you want to avoid this, just toast the bread like this, just lightly toast it. Then you just have to dip it in the egg mixture on both sides. But if you're like me and you don't mind a nice soft French toast in the middle, then just skip that step. Then we're ready to cook the French toast. Now here you're gonna notice some white stuff on the bread. This is just the fat of the coconut milk, and don't worry because that will melt off once it starts cooking. Then we're gonna cook the French toast for about 2 minutes per side. This can vary depending on how brown and toasted you want your French toast to be. What I always like to do is just lift the corner to see where is that the French toast, and if it's where I want it, then I just flip it, and then I just finish cooking the recipe. Then I'm gonna repeat this until I finish cooking all the French toast. Now if you're using a griddle, of course you don't need to wait. You could just cook them all at the same time, and trust me when I tell you, your kitchen is gonna smell so good with a hint of coconut. The vanilla and the cinnamon is just delicious. Then comes the best part, which is serving. And for me, the best part about this recipe is getting to add whatever toppings you like. Sometimes I just add a little bit of butter and a little bit of syrup. Other times I just add powdered sugar, or sometimes I just like to add strawberries with some whipped cream. And trust me, it doesn't matter what you add to it. You could even eat it by itself and it really tastes good, because I have eaten it just by itself, because the flavor of coconut and the sweetness is really good. Now, as most of the stuff I like to make, I always like to give it my Puerto Rican twist. And like I told you before, you could use any bread you like. Because yes, with this bread, it is amazing. Look, it looks very good. But with a Puerto Rican sweet bread, is even better. We call it pan sobao. This is a bread that is very soft, very fluffy, and it is perfect for this recipe. But if you do use the sweet bread, you need to make sure that you remove any of the sugar in the recipe, because if not, it will taste way too sweet. Another bread that you could use that is very similar to this one is an Italian bread. Then you could cut it into thick slices. I cut mine to about 1-inch thick pieces. Then you just have to follow the rest of the recipe and do everything the same. The only thing I do different is that I put the bread and I let it soak up the custard a few seconds more, since the bread tends to be on the thicker side. And just make sure that all the bread is well covered in this egg custard. And if you want to bake this, just flip them around, soak them in, and right there in that dish, pop it in the oven and cook it. Now to cook it in a pan, wait for it to be just like this, very nice and moist, and then you're ready for the pan. Then add some butter to the pan, and please don't skimp on the butter, because the butter adds the saltiness to the recipe and is really good. The butter helps the edges of the bread get nice and crispy and kind of salty. It is delicious. After 2 minutes, look how crispy the edges look. It's delicious because the middle is kind of soft, crispy edges, coconut flavor. Is perfect. And if you're making a lot of French toast at the same time and you make in multiple batches, but you still want to keep all of them warm, just turn your oven on, let it get warm, and then put your toast in there. And whenever you're ready, just serve. These type of French toast you see right here are perfect when you have a large group of people you need to feed, because they're on the smaller side and it's something you can whip up very quickly. And just to give you more ideas of stuff I do for breakfast in the morning, I like to take these small French toast and I make some scrambled eggs, I make some bacon, and then I make a bacon, egg, and cheese French toast sandwich. In the description below, I'll leave you the recipe for the pan sobao and also for the French toast, just in case you want to print it or look at the written recipe. As always, thank you so much for watching the video. Buen provecho, and see you on the next video.